All right, how you guys doing? So instead of talking about me and doing all that crap the first 2 minutes, I want to get right into it. Okay. We are basically doing a webinar on profile optimization, and it's on LinkedIn. But before we start, I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I want you to think about this as a running theme through your head through the entire time that you're here. Okay. Why are you here? Right? I want you guys to think about that question. Why are you here? And I'm going to attempt to answer it in a very small way, simple way. Most of you are here because you spoke to me at some point. We either had a DM conversation, you probably have been following my content, you've probably seen some of the stuff I've written, some of the comments I've written, and somewhere along the way, it went from, all right, I kind of like this guy's content to I'm going to commit a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour of my time to actually hearing this guy speak. And that's a shift that I want to teach all of you to be able to make. So whether you are doing your own webinar, whether you have a newsletter that you want people to sign up for, whether you want to book a call or not, all right, all the strategies in here are essentially a way to get you there, probably in a way that's a little bit more effective than you might be doing now. Okay. So, in order to do all of that, there's really three necessary steps you have to take on social media. And I'm not just talking about LinkedIn, even though today's focus will be on LinkedIn. But there's really three steps to all this. The first one is your profile. All right. You need to have a pretty kick ass, clear profile that says exactly what you do, who you do it for, how you do it, maybe some of the outcomes that you provide for people. Okay. So the profile's got to be spot on. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The second thing is your content. You've got to differentiate yourself through your content. Your voice has to come through. Your expertise has to come through. Your relatability to other people has to come through. And that's really, really important, not to mention consistency in content. You don't have to post every single day, but if you have, let's say, a 3 day a week cadence, that's a lot better than posting every once in a while, or even posting 5, 6 times a week where your content sucks. Okay. And then the last thing that you have to do, again, doesn't matter which uh, social media platform you're on, you really have to engage with people. And engaging, all that really means is leaving comments, responding to comments, being polite, leaving the right kinds of messages, direct messages, whatever it is. I consider engagement to be the modern day cold calling. I wrote an entire PDF on this. Okay. We're in a new age. You don't necessarily have to pick up the phone anymore, although I still advocate doing that. Um, so, but today we are going to focus on the very first of these three, and that is profile optimization. That's why you're all here. So let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. And I don't want to be uh, too self-centered here or braggadocious or whatever, but I'm going to use my own profile to kind of display what we all need to be doing in our own profiles. Okay. So there are five key elements to an effective LinkedIn profile. Five. And we're going to go through all five right now. The first one is your banner. Okay. The second one is your tagline. The third one is your CTA or your call to action. The fourth one is your featured section. And the fifth one is your about section. You can do a services section. I'm going to explain to you why I don't. It's kind of a either or in my opinion. But let's go through all five individually. I'll show you exactly where they are on the page, how to change them, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So your banner. Banners are really, really important, guys. Okay. The average user looks at your banner anywhere from 5 to 7 seconds. Now, if you are familiar with the internet, 5 to 7 seconds is an eternity, right? They typically tell you you got to hook your reader in 3 seconds, right? So if somebody's looking at something for 5 to 7 seconds, that's actually pretty legit. So you really want to try your best to nail your banner. Okay. So what does a banner have to have? One, I think it's got to have good design. There's a lot of people, I'm not saying anyone on here, but there are a lot of people out there on LinkedIn whose banners are like scenery, or an ocean or a city skyline, and there's no information on it. And while it looks nice and it's aesthetically pleasing to the eye, I don't know what the hell you do in the first 5 to 7 seconds of looking at a banner like that. So in your banner, what you really want to make sure you have is an explanation of what you do, right? How you help people, and maybe alluding to the fact that they can reach you or they can take some sort of a step in order to learn more about you. Okay, so in my example, I actually used my logo just to really start introducing brand built right away. Okay, but immediately right off the bat, what do I do? The right attention is what you need. So you want to explain it in a clear and concise way, because obviously you don't have a ton of real estate here. You don't want to write like a giant paragraph that says what you do. You save that stuff for your about section. Okay. But it's pretty obvious what I do. I write it right here. Get your brand built. I don't necessarily say how, right? But I do tell you, hey, I get your brand built, right? And as a result, what can happen? You can lead the conversation. And ultimately, what most people want to do is grow their business, make more money, get more clients, et cetera, et cetera. I decided to use grow your business. Okay. And then I decided to put an extra additional thing here that says check out my free webinar. And the reason I did that is because there's only one thing I really want people to get out of this profile and all my content. Eventually, I want people right where you are in this webinar. That's my goal. Okay. And eventually, the goal is obviously to get people into my community, possibly one-to-one coaching, whatever products or services that you have, those are all the eventualities you're going to have from your profile and from making contact with people. I recommend having some sort of visual of yourself in there. Okay. You could have any background you want, doesn't matter. I just happen to use a black, gradient with a little bit of aqua and blue in there. Another thing I should mention is your profile picture itself. Uh, Ideally, you kind of want these to be professional. It's worth the money. I think it's anywhere from 500-600 bucks for a professional to do your banner. Um, FYI, here's my first sales pitch. We happen to do them for 150 bucks in our community. But you really do want to make sure that it kind of stands out a little bit. And another thing I would recommend, which is actually underrated, smile. You really should smile. You should be inviting, even if it's a half smile. That's what I have here. I don't like doing a giant, massive smile, but you kind of want to be inviting. Aesthetics do count. I hate to say it, but it is the truth. So you want to have something that's as inviting as possible. So that's the banner. Second thing, your tagline. What is your tagline? In my personal opinion, you can have two types of taglines. One of them can be some sort of a slogan, something that's very memorable. The only reason I caution against that is the memorable slogans are really for larger creators, because the larger you are on this platform, the less it kind of matters. Everything that I'm talking about right now almost matters less and less and less the larger you are. So I personally think that it's important to start from a place where you're abundantly clear about who you are and what you do. So you can have a slogan. Mine used to be the business coach who actually runs a business. That was pretty memorable. People liked that. But I changed it, and I changed mine to a nice little short one-liner, creating impactful personal brands for founders. If people don't know what that means, then I have a serious problem. I would imagine that when one reads that, it's pretty obvious what I do. And in your case, it's got to be really obvious what you do. So it could be something like, I help lawyers in New York City get more clients through in 90 days, right? That's really, really obvious. But you also want to make sure that you're not too niche, right? But you're also not too general. Like you could say, I help people grow their brands. That's really, really general. At least I put in there founders, right? So I'm specifically focusing on senior people, usually entrepreneurs. So just that word founders is a good differentiator. So again, in your cases, you could say, a lot of people like to use I help. I like to be a little bit more authoritative. So you may want to say helping, or, you know, getting more revenue through simple systems, for lawyers, or something along those lines. So take a look at your tagline, try and revise it. A really great tool for taglines is actually ChatGPT. It's a good place to put in, something where you can put in a line yourself and say, hey, come up with another 30 taglines that would really help me on LinkedIn, something along those lines. Um, I'm not a huge automation guy. I'm not a huge ChatGPT guy, but at the same time, hey, when it comes in handy, especially for things like this, I would recommend that you use it just to see, some ideas, some topics to get that going. Third thing, the third thing I want to bring up is the CTA. That is your call to action. Okay. So ask yourself this question. What do I want people to do after seeing my profile or after reading my content or whatever? In the case of this particular webinar, what do I want people to do as a result of seeing my profile? In mine, it's pretty obvious. I want you to attend my free live webinar. That's all I want. And that has to be consistent throughout your profile. And I'm going to explain that. But when it comes to your CTA, you have two options. So you're going to need a little bit of detail on this. The first option, which I prefer, is a custom link. It's basically, you know, it's going to look like this. Now, unfortunately, not everybody on LinkedIn has the option to produce one of these. You either have to have I believe it's a premium business account, or you have to have Sales Navigator. If you don't have either of those, you do not have the option to create a custom link like this. The reason I like the custom link is because it allows you the opportunity to change the text around, and you can even use like little emojis. One of the things I wish LinkedIn would do was allow these links to be read. They will never do that because people would be clicking on them all the time and people would be leaving their website. So I understand that. But the closest you can get, I just use a little hand here. So it differentiates it just a little bit. I got a little bit of a, color, mismatch. So the eye kind of gets drawn toward that. Now, the other option that you have is adding a custom button, which most people do. A custom button is going to produce a button that looks basically like these right here, only it's going to say something like visit my website, book an appointment. You've probably seen these before, right? And there's a few others. The problem I have with that is when you create another button, it really blends into these and it looks exactly the same. And it doesn't look great. Here's another, let's see. Yeah, see the visit my website? That's Erica's account. I know Erica. She's a great creator. But anyway, you see Save in Sales Navigator, visit my website. The problem is that it really blends in with this stuff. It's really up to you, but like I said, those are your two CTA options. And in order to add a custom link, I just want to show you guys actually how to do it. If you wanted to add a custom button, sorry. Let's see. So I can edit my custom button. And in order to create it, basically what you would do is you would have the link here and you can change the text to whatever you want it to be. And that's basically going to be your custom link. So instead of editing a custom button, again, it's not all of you are going to have this option. Instead of it saying edit custom button, you're going to add a link instead. And that's how you would add that. And when somebody clicks on it, it opens in a new tab and it goes directly to, in my case, a Calendly, where somebody can check out exactly what I do. So that is how you do your CTA. Again, make sure that your CTA is directing people precisely where you want them to be. So let me get into what that means. Some of you think to yourselves, oh, I really want to send people to my newsletter, or I really want to send people to my website. Okay, that's fine, but why? Right? Do you want to send people into a funnel that's going to take 6 months to eventually get you a call? Maybe. Probably not. Right? So depending on what your product or service is, everyone on this call is doing something different. Some of you serve a much higher ticket client, so you might be charging thousands of dollars a month for what you do. In which case, what's your likely goal here? It's probably to generate calls. So if you have a high ticket item, my suggestion would be to send people to a Calendly where you can then further qualify those people so you're not wasting your time. On the flip side, if you have a lower ticket item, let's say a course, right? Or maybe just a strategy call, something that costs $100, whatever that might be, then using a funnel might be appropriate. Then you might want to send people to like a landing page where they can download a free guide and that automatically puts them into the newsletter and you can nurture them that way. So the CTA is really important. You want to make sure you're sending them to the right place. So let's scroll down a little bit and talk about the featured section. So the featured section, in my opinion, is a visual version of your CTA or your button. It's an opportunity for you to take this and turn it into this. Something that's a lot more visual. Basically, I say it's your second chance at that person clicking on that crucial link, right? Because sometimes people are going to do what? They might just scroll, but they might not scroll past a picture, right? So you would add a featured section. Now, like I said before, I mentioned services. If I were to do services or featured, I would choose featured over services. The reason is because you have a little bit more flexibility on the graphics and the text. But if you're going to do one, just do one. The reason is if you have a services section layered on top of this, then it's just more scrolling. And remember, attention spans are very small. So in my opinion, you really only give them as few opportunities and few choices as you can. So that's why I use a featured section. And in that featured section, what exactly should be in there? Well, take a wild guess. It should be either your buttons link or your CTA's link. It's just an extension. So here it is, attend my free webinar. But in this case, I have a little bit more of an opportunity to explain what it is. This is kind of my slogan, build not just your brand, build your business. There's a picture of me, there's my logo. But I also put a nice descriptive sentence. Book your slot to my free webinar on creating a profile that speaks to your audience. Okay. If I were you, I wouldn't put more than 2 items in the featured section. And I'll explain why. If you go on mobile, which most people are on, you're only going to be able to see 1 item. And after that, you have to click a button that keeps extending things. Now on desktop, you can actually see 3 of these, like right here. If I were to add another one, you'd be able to see a third. But again, on mobile, you really only see 1. So again, I like to keep people's options limited as far as what they're allowed to click. So I've chosen to link to my webinar, and I've also chosen to link to my newsletter. Now here's a little trick that a lot of people don't know about the featured section. Do not add a description. I'm going to demonstrate what that means. Do not add a description. This right here is not a description. This is, as you will see, it's a title. See how my description is empty? Now I'm going to explain this and why it's important. Again, this has to do with the internet, and it has to do with people's attention spans, and it has to do with time. Okay? Here's Erica again. I'm not meaning to pick on her because, like I said, she's a great creator. I just happen to know that in her featured section, she has a description. Now watch what happens when I click. See what happens there? Not a whole lot. I'm not on her page. I'm still on LinkedIn. The only way to get to her page is to do what? I have to click view. Now watch the difference when you don't add a description. Click on mine. What happens? Takes you directly there. No pop-up. That's why you don't add a description. Your meat in your featured section thumbnails, it's going to be your title. So your title is like your description. Does everybody understand that? It's really, really important when it comes to somebody clicking. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is your about section. I mentioned the featured section before the about section because of all the things that people look at in your profile, usually the about section is the one they'll either skip over or they'll look at last. However, Here's why an about section is crucial. The people who do read your about section really do care. And the people who care are the people you want to be your clients, right? So you've got to remember that you are writing for one. I'm going to repeat that. You're writing for one, that one person, your ideal client, right? The ICP, the ideal client profile. So your about section, this is how I would describe an about section. Think of it as your ultimate LinkedIn post, okay? If you had one thing to write on LinkedIn to describe who you are, what you do, how you help people, and how they can reach you, what would you write? That's what your about section should be. And what that means is you want to use a content format that is tried and true. I happen to like using a hook, a story, a solution, right? Sometimes you can add in a result and a CTA. I call that HSSRC. That's a little sneak preview of what I do with content. Okay. But a hook should be something that elicits emotion, right? Either sadness, happiness, joy, anger, doesn't matter. You really want to draw on the reader with a hook. It should be short, it should be powerful. Okay. So mine is I never wanted a boss ever. Lots of people relate to that line. I've had emails from people saying, I love that line, right? Maybe some people won't resonate with it. That's fine. Good. Then that means I'm repelling people. I don't have a problem repelling people. I don't want to work with people who don't want to work with me, right? So you start with the hook. What comes next? The story. The story is how I used to have a problem with authority, right? And I talked about my journey basically as an entrepreneur and how I grew a website portfolio and how I've done that the last 17 years. I actually have to update this. It's now 18 years. I'm getting old. Um, how I had flexibility in my job, et cetera, et cetera. But then I got into what I started to do on LinkedIn really in 2022 when I started to take it a little bit more seriously, and I was doing more coaching. So what do I do now? While I still own the websites, here's what I do. Help people leverage their personal brand to grow their business, attract clients, and grow their networks. What does that have in it? It's a solution. There's a result in there, right? And I even use my method. The method I have that I came up with is called ICE, ISE, identify, strategize, execute. That's like my own kind of, if you want to call it, proprietary method of coaching and helping people. And then finally, the CTA. Unfortunately, they don't hyperlink here, which kind of sucks. So you have to just write it out. But here it is. There's my community link, join Brand Built, and here's my free newsletter. You can even put an email address in there if you want. I wouldn't do that, but it's totally up to you. You can. Um, so that's it. That's your profile. Those are the 5 key elements to optimizing your profile, making it as visible as possible, making it as accurate as possible, and trying to get people where you want them to go. So the other 2 elements, like I said, as far as like a sneak preview and how that all works, is the other 2 elements in that first 3 that I mentioned before. You've got your profile, you've got your content, and you've got your engagement. When it comes to content, again, follow that HSSRC format. Post consistently, meaning 3 posts a week is better than 1 post every 2 months. And it's also better than 5 posts a week that are all crap. What I've been seeing work on the platform, as far as formatting and as far as types of content, I'm a selfie and a text guy. I like to post a selfie. Most people know me because I wear a bunch of different kinds of t-shirts. It's just a way of people being like, oh, that's Nat. He's the t-shirt guy, whatever. You want people to know you for something, and your content is how you do that. So typically, I will write anywhere from 300 to 400 words. The reason I do that is because it's longer than most people on the platform. That means people who read to the end care. People who read to the end care. I don't care about getting 500,000 impressions on a post. I care about getting people into this webinar. Okay. Vanity metrics, yeah, they go so far, but when it comes to content, you really want to be dialed in. Okay. So I would stick to that HSSRC format. Um, Content types, look, try them all, right? For some reason, video just doesn't do well for my account. I don't know why. Maybe I haven't trained the algorithm. And it's funny because I grew up on LinkedIn with doing video every single day. It's all I did on LinkedIn. Now I just stick with selfies and text, and they do pretty well for me. Carousels seem to do well sometimes. Infographics. I'm not really a huge fan of you know, uh, the kind of stuff that everyone is seeing, which is like, bad hires mean this, mean this, or, whatever. There's a lot of posts that you see that have like 500 reshares, and I don't know. That's not necessarily my thing. Um, and then lastly, engagement. Okay. I'm not going to go into too much detail on engagement, but let's just say if you're not commenting and you're not sending DMs, all of the greatest content in the world's not going to matter. Set a good goal every day to be engaging with a good 20 to 30 people. I usually do between 60 and 80, and I'm talking about comments. DMs, I usually send out about 50 to 60 every day. And those DMs usually go to my first connections. They'll go to people who have commented or have liked my posts. They'll go to people that I've seen view my profile. They will go to people who are following me. And I have separate messages for all those types. Those are things you can learn elsewhere. But I just wanted to give you guys a real quick primer, on content, on engagement. So that's really it. I'm going to get to Q&A in about 5 minutes. I just wanted to make sure that I got a chance to pitch the hell out of you guys. So if you can stand 5 minutes of your time, we'll get right to the Q&A after that. We still got a half an hour to go here. So what I wanted to show you guys is the following. If you liked what you just learned and you felt that it will be beneficial to you, I want you to imagine being able to learn something like this every single week, but on a different topic, right? So one week you could be learning content. One week you can be going into ChatGPT for creating YouTube videos. We could be talking about automation and how to set up your CRM, all kinds of different topics. That's the stuff that we do in my community. So this is my community. It's called Brand Built. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you this. So I just want to highlight the kind of stuff that we do in there, just in case you guys have any interest. All right. The majority of the outcomes in the community look like this. You're going to get a revamped profile. You'll have a content strategy. You'll have an engagement strategy. I mentioned all that stuff today. Most of the people in our community, they're going to wind up getting an increased appointment close percentage. Their subscribers go up. Their follower and engagement numbers do go up. But we care about the right followers and the right engagement. And as a result of that, people are increasing their revenues, they're increasing their sales strategy and their close rates on sales calls. Okay. And then if you want to go beyond that, we offer CRM services where you can track all of your leads. You can send out automated messages, emails. We do landing pages, basically everything. So if you want to scale your business, let's say beyond $1 million or beyond six figures, you can do that through automation and systems. So within our community, here are the features that we do. Okay, so basically we have an hour weekly community chat. That's a live Q&A. Very similar to what I'm doing with you right now, only the lesson itself is about 10 to 15 minutes. Then we spend about 45 in Q&A. We have 4 monthly 1 hour live trainings. Basically what you just got right here. But we focus on branding, automation, business strategy, even video strategy. And that comes from all different people that we have in the community, as well as the leadership in our company. We've got a community forum and chat capability. We basically custom built this whole thing on GHL. It kind of looks like a school community aesthetically. So you get to chat with other members. You can post unlimited in the forum, ask questions. There are 2 courses in there. There's a LinkedIn mastery course and a 30-day productivity challenge. Those are both pretty fun. The anchor course is obviously the LinkedIn mastery course. And then as we go up the rung, you can do private group coaching. We even have ghostwriting services available for people who don't have the time to write their own content. We have quite a few clients in that area. And as I said, we have our own CRM. It's called Digital Magic. So you can have your own subscription to that, and that also has its own community. And the links for those are right here. So when I send this to you, which I will do right now, I'll put it in the chat, and you'll likely get it in an email. That's it. That was my pitch. Was that short enough, guys? That was literally like 3 minutes. I think that was pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of myself. All right, so let's I told you guys I wasn't going to be pitching you like crazy.